Hello, everybody. Nice to see you on
Hello.
this July 21st, 2022, our class number 4 of this summer session. We have one more class next Thursday night at 7 o'clock where we have the fun of talking about taxes. But tonight we're talking about financial planning. But more importantly, we're wrapping up the assignment time of our class. You have posted your assignment 3. One person still has yet to post, so I'm not going to review it tonight, but I will grade your work this weekend and post the grade for you and the solutions. Um, Also, you have your case paper. Now, I know, Eva, you are doing the paper topic number 7 on credit card balances or credit cards. And Janisa, you're doing topic number 11 about insurance policies. So for my first thing off is, do you, any of you two have any questions or need any help about how going about to write the paper? Okay, Eva, good.
Yes, I have a question.
Sure.
So I know from last session you were talking about if we don't have any resources or websites, you can provide us some for us to write the paper.
Uh-huh.
So I was hoping if maybe you could help me with the insurance policy topics and what great websites or resources I can look at.
Sure, Unisa. What after our class tonight, I have another class after our class tonight, so I'm going to be a little busy. This is my 5 class day. I have 5 classes today, so I'm a little punchy as it is. But Unisa, once tomorrow morning, I will send you some resources for your paper via email. How's that sound?
That's great. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
And then if you take a look at those and you're still a little bit confused or apprehensive, just let me know and I'll help you. We can sit down on a Zoom and just talk about it. But I think the resources I get you will be pretty straightforward. You can look at them and I think you'll have more than enough to do your paper. Okay?
Okay, great. Thank you.
Wonderful. And thanks for asking. That's what I wanted you to do. If you feel a little uncomfortable finding information about your topic, I'm the source and I will help you do that. So, okay, great. Thank you. Now, again, let me just bring something up here. Your paper will be due July 31st. And what I would like, and I'll be creating a file here to upload your file, and I can talk about that next Thursday. But you have really until August 3rd to post your paper. 31st is a Sunday, but I have to have the grades in by August 4th. So if you want some extra time, or if any of you need some extra time, please let me know and I will extend the paper. You don't have to post it till August 3rd. That is a Wednesday. So you basically have plenty of time to do it. And if you have any questions, we can also talk about it next Thursday in our final class if you have any last minute questions. And even if Eva and Yunisa, if you want to send me a draft of your paper in advance and I can look at it and say, you know what, this is great, or you know what, maybe you should think about this and this, clean it up a little bit. If you want to do that, please do so. Send me a draft of your paper. It doesn't have, that's not the final version, so I understand that. But if you want to send me a draft to make you feel comfortable that you did the paper correctly, please do so. Just send it to me, email it to me, and I will look it over and send it back to you if I feel that you need to do any adjustments or any corrections to it. So please feel free to take advantage of that if you want to. Okay, good. Now, one of the difficult things of this class is we meet kind of at odd times. We meet at, we do meet, but it's not the same as being in a classroom. And one of the things I want to stress in these last couple of weeks or these last 2 class sessions of our course is that if you have any questions or if you want to ask any questions that have nothing to do pretty much with the material, but are your own personal financial management, please feel free to email me, ask questions, anything I can help you with specific specific issues that you may have in personal financial management, please let me know. And also, I wanted to give you a heads up. Next fall, it will be announced pretty soon, but next fall I will be giving a series of of lectures via Zoom on financial management to the university. In other words, if my lectures will consider and it'll be available to all students and all alumni of the university, where I'll be talking about retirement, I'll be talking about pay and insurance, be talking a lot about a lot of issues, kind of many of the issues that we talk about in this class, but also a little bit more specific. So just so a note to yourself, look, you'll be given plenty of time to sign up for these financial literacy they're called financial literacy lectures. One will be in October, one will be in November, and one will be in December. So they're free. You don't have to pay for them, thank God. And also that they'll be available to all students and just to brush up on your financial skills during the course of the fall. So just it doesn't cost you anything, but the good thing about it is you know me in advance and you kind of know what you're going to be looking at when this comes on. So that's something to be given a head start on. Now I want to show a little video, not very long, but it talks about personal financial planning. So let's watch this video. Oh yes, Unisa, question.
Yes, I have a question about the financial literacy lecture.
Yes, ma'am.
Did they already post like the dates and everything?
No, they haven't decided that yet. I was just told this afternoon that we're going to do it. So they're still working out. I still have to work out with them the dates that I'm available. And the time of day probably will be in the afternoon, but we're going to record them and make them available on the website. So I just found out about this today, Unisa. So it's still in the planning stage. But I've already told the dean, and I gave them your names to put you on the mailing list, just so you know that that might be happening. But it's still being worked out, Unisa. So I have no other details to give you.
Okay, so I'll stay tuned for that because I do really want to attend.
Great. Well, I gave them when they contacted me, do you want to put any students on the mailing list when we start distributing it? I said, yes, I want my students from my business finance class and also my students from my personal financial management class to be aware of these sessions. And so they already got your name. So that's a good thing.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, Unisa. So let me get this video here. There it is. Okay.
I can't see anything. It's just a white screen.
Here it comes.
Oh, there you go. Okay. Thank you.
Google Fi, a phone plan by Google. Get unlimited data, calls, and texts with a Fi Unlimited plan, starting at just $20 per month for each.
Many people.
Here we go. Okay. Get set. Go.
Find financial planning complex and simply choose to put it off. Others may be confused. It's actually pretty simple. Financial planning, simply put, is charting and following a roadmap to get from where you are to where you want to be 10, 15, or 20 years from now. It's like bringing your family for a road trip, your parents, spouse, and of course, the children. You start from getting to know your current financial position. What financial resources or assets do you already have in place? What sort of liabilities do you have, and how much? How's your cash flow position? Is it enough to power your journey? From your financial position, financial ratios can point to areas of attention. Are you saving enough? Are you borrowing too much or too little? Are you paying too much bad debt? Next, you want to know what destinations you want to bring your family. Say, sending your children to university, owning properties giving you rental income, or retiring rich in the Bahamas. Write down those goals and put down the timeline and amount needed. A general roadmap can then be planned out, taking into account the distance, time, and resources needed. Next, determine the optimal asset allocation needed to achieve those goals. It has to match risk and return needs and your loss aversion. It's like choosing a car for the journey. depending if you like to go fast and furious or slow and steady. You may want a Ferrari, a four-wheel drive, or something in between. Given your resources, it may not be realistic to reach all the goals in the time that you have initially planned. In that case, you may need to adjust the goals or adjust your finances, like cutting unnecessary expenses, eliminating bad debt, or increasing leverage. On the other hand, if the goals mean so much to you, you may just need to drive a little faster and work a bit harder. As you plan the roadmap, you'll need Plan B or Plan C to deal with contingencies like medical bills, loss of income due to disability, or even death, so that the family can still reach the destination you planned out. And off you go. As all road trips go, they never happen exactly the way you planned. There may be road bumps, obstacles, distractions, maybe even disasters that take you off the path. Along the way, you may need to slow down when there is a hazard ahead and take advantage of opportunities to speed up. When you ultimately arrive at the destination, you'll want to be in a position that your money is now working for you, instead of you working for your money. And that's Financial Planning Explained.
Kind of corny, but also very basic and gives a good definition of financial planning. One of the things I wanted to talk about tonight in regards to financial planning is there's a lot of so-called professionals out there. Oh God, my hair looks awful. I apologize. Good God almighty. I look like an idiot. Okay, sorry. There's a lot of financial planners out there, people who will try to get your business to help you with financial planning. A lot of them, and I'm going to be honest with you, a lot of them, by you taking this class, you know just as much as they do. The only thing that they have is they have a license, and that license gives them the ability to overcharge you and rip you off. Trust me. So what you need to do is, as the video said, is just plan and understand your finances. By doing budgets, by understanding where your money comes from, by understanding where you want to get to, what do you need to do? Save money for college, save money to get a house, save money to do all different kinds of things. That's what you want to do. And that's the key to all this, is make sure you have an idea of where you want to go. You don't need anybody, you don't need a financial planner to do that. That's from you. You can do that on your own. You don't need somebody to charge you $150 an hour to just be able to tell you what you need. You can figure that out yourself. So that's the key to financial planning, is just understand what you need or what your family needs. That's the key. Now, there's additional things in financial planning that can help you, like insurance, cover risk. Now, here's a kind of a corny phrase, but it's true. I have lived my life financially by always having an exit strategy. All right. And that's a kind of a cool term if in business, or you want to have it. I sound like I should be in the TV show Succession. If any of you guys ever watch that show, it's having an exit strategy. For example, I know this sounds kind of crude, but it's true. I have insurance for my automobile. I have insurance for health. I have insurance for my home. I have insurance for my life. Okay. What is insurance? It's exit strategies. All right. It's a plan B should something go wrong. You have to pay out insurance in case you get in an automobile accident. You have to pay out insurance in case you get sick. You have to pay out insurance in case something happens to your home or your apartment. You have to pay out insurance if you die. Then people are protected. So insurance is one of those things in financial planning that is, like the gentleman said in the video, plan A, plan B. It's a way of exit strategies of giving you different alternatives if something happens. That's a key. Another exit strategy is, sorry to say, is planning for your death, having a will. I can't tell you how many people out there don't have wills, some designations. If by the time you're 45 years old, and I know you ladies are not even close to that yet, but if you get to be 45 years old, you should have some type of will. Now, what do I mean by that is by that time your families has been established. You kind of know where you are in your career. You're beginning to have you're creating some assets in regards to saving money or putting money into pension funds. You're beginning to have some wealth. Well, now with a will, you need to protect that. Now, here's one of the creepiest things about wills. You got to deal with a lawyer, and lawyers are not cheap. For a standard will, they'll charge you a retainer of $2,500. Plus, if they have to do any more work, they're going to charge you more. The average will cost about $2,500. Well, that's a lot of money. But here's the good thing. You guys are smart students. You're using the internet to learn. You can go to websites to write your own will. And it's so easy. All it is, you have to pay maybe about $75 to file it. That's all you have to do. $75 is a lot cheaper than $2,500. And you can do that. It's so easy to do a will. All you have to do is state your beneficiaries, who's in your family. You give an estimate. You don't have to give specifics about how much assets you have. Do you own a car? Do you own a home? Roughly how much money you have? What's in your pension fund, your IRA, your 401k? You don't have to be specific. You just give a general idea. And then you designate who's your estate, who runs your estate, or who's going to be the executor of your estate should something happen to you. It might be your husband. It might be your sister. It might even be your parents. I wouldn't do that because they're older than you. You want to pick somebody around your own age or younger to be around when something happens. Now, I know this all sounds kind of morbid, but trust me, I have been involved in situations in my life where the family or the individual never bothered to get a will. And then when they died, their family didn't get anything. It all went into probate, meaning it was decided by a judge who gets what. And in the state of California, if you don't have a will, the state gets your money. They can take your money. If you don't have a designator or any system set up in a will about who's in charge, the state can take your money. So what you do is you go into probate court, your family members have to go through probate, and they have to prove to the judge that, yeah, you forgot to do a will, but you're their beneficiaries and you should get the money. Well, usually you'll end up getting your money, but it's going to cost you thousands of dollars with an attorney to go through the probate court. So don't subject your family members to that. Just put it down in a simple will what you want to do. Then they don't have to spend all that money to fight the state of California to making sure what they should get their just due. With the matter of fact, but because there was no will, you have to go through all that probate court. It's awful. It's awful. And especially the more, let's say you have a house, even though you might have a mortgage still on the house, that house is in your name. Your son or daughter or whoever should be able to take that over. If you don't have a will, the state technically can take that away from you. You don't want that to happen. So a simple will is very easy to do. You can go online and do it yourself. There's also legal aid. There's lawyers who do it pro bono for free. Of course, you have to qualify based on your income, but if you make less, if your family income is less than $70,000, you may qualify for free legal advice to create a will. Not bad. So think about that. It really is important. I didn't make my will until I was about 50 years old. First of all, I was in denial. Oh, I'm never going to die. I don't have any problems. Really? And then my wife got sick, and I said, I think we better get a will. But still, don't postpone it too long. You never know. And I know that's a morbid thought, but think how much you love your family, how much you love your children, your parents, your spouse, or all the people who you care for. Without a will, they're going to be up the creek and stressed out to the max if you don't have a system set up to make sure everything is okay once you leave. And that's important. And also, you should tell your parents, if they don't have any wills, maybe I should help them try to put something together. And you can do it very easily. You don't have to be Perry Mason to do this. If any of you know who Perry Mason is, I'm kind of dating myself there. That's a lawyer from television. Okay. Or Matlock. There's another one. Matlock. You don't have to be Matlock. You probably don't know that one either. Oh well. Okay. But those are the two key things. In financial planning, you don't have to have a lot of insurance, but have enough insurance so your exit strategy is taken care of. And the four big ones are health insurance, car insurance, renters or home insurance, all right? Car insurance, health insurance, renters or home insurance, and then insurance for life insurance when you die. And that includes a will. Those are the big four. Now, the good thing about it is health insurance you get from your employer, hopefully. All right. Car insurance, you got to have it no matter what if you live in the state of California. Life insurance, there's one of the alternatives that you have a say in. Life insurance, you can get a fairly cheap, what is called a term policy, where you can get about $100,000 of insurance for roughly about $30 a month. Or you can get what is called annuity life insurance, where you invest in a policy and that money is like an investment. It earns money over time. And at the end of your life, if you want to, you can cash it in and it's like a retirement payment. It's called an annuity or whole life policy. That's a little bit more expensive, like about $60 a month. And I'm basing these rates on my approximating your ages. But term insurance is very cheap. And matter of fact, you should check with your HR office at your job. Many companies offer low-cost life insurance as being an employee. At the University of Laverne, they offer an insurance policy for double your salary, and the university pays for it. So check with your employer and see if they offer life insurance policy for you. Many employers have that. If not, a term insurance policy is very cheap. The general rule of thumb is the minimum life insurance policy you should have is anywhere from 2 to 3 times your salary. Now, if you own a home or have any other debts, you also should have insurance to match those debts. So let's say I have a salary of $50,000. All right, that's a $100,000 insurance policy I should have. But also, I have a car loan that's $6,000. I have a student loan of $10,000. I have, other loans. You total up all your loans. Let's say that's another $30,000. So now you should get an insurance policy for $130,000. Just so if something happens to you, your family doesn't get stressed out because, even though you die, those bills do not die. Somebody's got to pay. And it's the next of kin that pays. So with an insurance policy, if something happens to you, they are covered by that insurance payment to pay off those obligations. So that's the thinking you make. That's the thinking you should do in financial planning. In the early part of this course, we were talking about financial planning, knowing about banking institutions, knowing about keeping track of your financial records, knowing about keeping track of maybe a budget, knowing about where your money is invested or how it is invested. All of these are pieces of the pie. But when it gets to this week about financial planning, you got to make sure you have an exit strategy with insurance, with a will, making sure you're covered in case something happens. And that's the point of all this. I'm sure a lot of you already have some type of insurance. I'm sure you have health insurance. If you're working, boy, you got to have health insurance. And even if you don't get health insurance through your employer, you can get fairly reasonable Obamacare and other private insurance policies. But the key one for most of us, we're covered by auto insurance because we got to have it if we want to drive in California. We're covered by health insurance because you got to have health insurance with your employer. Thirdly, most of us have some type of insurance to protect where we live. Either you can't get, in many cases, a landlord would not give you an apartment unless you have renter's insurance. The landlord won't lease to you unless you can prove to them you have renter's insurance. A bank will not give you a mortgage unless you have insurance on your home. So you have to do those just to get them. So the big big one, what you have to think about, what you don't have to have, is life insurance. That's the big one. Perhaps, though, for the long term, that's the most important. That's the most important because you're covering your death. I know that sounds morbid, but trust me. Uh, and I'm sure you have had parents or family members or friends who have passed on. It's difficult. And you don't need, your family does not to be hassled by money and legal obligations that they know nothing about. Make sure everything is taken care of and you'll feel better. Hopefully it'll never happen that you're going to have to use that for a long time, but it's good to have it and think about it. So life insurance is the big unknown. Health, renters or mortgage insurance, and car insurance are pretty well given. The rest is up to you. So that's the key part of financial planning, is to prepare for the future. And I like to call it an exit strategy. If you exit, that's not very good. But the exit strategy is, if something changes, you have the financial resources to change. And I can't tell you how many people do not prepare for that. And that's unsettling. It's unsettling to your families. And I'll tell you what, and I might have mentioned this in the first week. If you have children, by the time they become maybe in junior high school or in high school, 10th grade, you should sit down with them and explain your family financing. I know that for some parents that can be very uncomfortable. I know it was uncomfortable for my parents because they didn't want me to know about the family troubles, the family debts. But trust me, by teaching your children and showing them that, you're preparing them for when they become adults, because they're going to have the same issues. Trust me. And by explaining it to them, you don't have to put the burden on, well, you're 10th grade, you better go out and get a job to help the family. No, don't do that. They don't need that stress unless you want to. But just explain to them how the family finances work, how much money. You don't have to give all the details, but what are the obligations of the family? What are the planning of the family? And what is the income of the family? Because there's nothing worse, and I've been in households like that, when your parents are fighting, and they're fighting over something that you don't understand. Money. Why did you spend that? We didn't do that. And you're thinking it's your fault, or you're thinking it's something's wrong. All they need to do is explain that to you, and then you understand why they're fighting. But hopefully, if they explain that to you, that's a big part of financial planning. Communication. Communication with your spouse, communication with your parents, communication with your employer, communication with your children. You don't have to give all the specifics, but trust me, if you're honest and everybody has an idea of what's going on, it's a lot easier. It really is. And I know it's embarrassing in some families. I know it's sometimes very difficult to talk about that personal self. And I know also in family cultures, people don't talk about that. It's private. Well, I don't think your son and daughter are not something that can't be private. They're part of the family. They live under the same roof. They should be aware of that. And I know I'm kind of preaching to the choir here, but at the same time, a lot of us are in denial about telling our family what's going on. I have freshman students at Laverne, and I'm talking to them about financial planning and accounting and business finance. And I say, you guys have a student loan that you have to pay off 6 months after you graduate. And they all look at me in shock. I didn't know that. Nobody ever explained that to me. And then I get mad at our financial aid office for not doing their job. But I even get more mad, I don't show it, but I get upset that the parents didn't explain to their children what the obligations are about them going to college. You're getting a student loan 6 months after you graduate, the clock is running. A lot of students don't even know that. Good Lord Almighty. Communication in financial planning is so important. And honesty. Just dealing with it. And you guys know this better than I do. Don't you feel better, even though it's bad news, but don't you feel better that you got it out? that you explained it, that you talked about it, even though you might be embarrassed, even though it's very uncomfortable. After an hour or so, you sit back and go, God, I'm glad I got that out. It feels much better. And now you can work together as a family to handle that situation. Most families fall apart over money. And part of that is nobody communicates about money troubles, money successes, sharing. That's a key to financial planning at the top of the list. And then understanding about insurance and understanding about death. We'll talk about taxes next week, but understanding about what happens or what do you need to do for your exit strategies. If your car gets destroyed, if your apartment has a fire, if you get somebody gets sick or you get sick, and if something happens to you personally. I know, again, morbid thoughts, but it's a good discussion that you need to have with yourself and then with other people. And I think that's the purpose of the video, and the purpose of this class this evening is for you to understand that. And I know you're like, if you're like me, yeah, thanks, Mr. Hassey, but I'm still not going to talk to my father about finances. I'm scared of him. Well, I understand that, but you're an adult. You shouldn't be afraid of your parents when you're an adult. Something's wrong elsewhere if you can't talk to your parents. And now I'm starting to sound like a psychiatrist, and I'm farther from that as possible. But you should be able to talk with your family, even though it's uncomfortable. You should talk about that. I remember the first time when my father had this sit down with me when I was in 10th grade, and he was talking about the family finances and how we were going to private high school. We were going to Catholic school. So my parents had to pay to go to school for us. They wanted us to go to Catholic school, and it screwed us up for life, but I'll talk, that's a subject for another class. But we went to Catholic school. So my mom had to take a job so she could help pay for our school. And that was their commitment to us. Well, that made a big difference in my sisters and I of knowing that. It means we better not screw around at school because our mom is working because she's paying for our school. That made us become a little bit more aware of what we're doing, and not we're a bunch of fruitcakes just laughing and ha-haing in school and not doing anything. When we knew that our mother was going to work just for us, that made a big difference. And even though it was very uncomfortable for our parents to tell us that, it made a big difference. And it helped us when we had children to tell them that stuff as well. Easier said than done in discussing finances with family, but if you work at it, makes life a lot easier and a lot easier to cope with everything. And as you know, these days, 9% inflation, never knowing if somebody is going to get sick. I mean, I can't believe how many family and friends of my family in the last month have gotten sick with COVID. I thought this was all over. I've had more friends and family now get sick than a year ago. What's up with that? I don't understand. Well, I do understand. People aren't smart. The disease is a long-term effect. We got to be careful for many years. And that's the way it is. But if you forget about that, you're going to get sick. And I've had a lot of friends of mine and people in my family get sick the last month. I had to fly back to Michigan a couple weeks ago to take care of my parents who were ill because of this. So there's a lot of stresses and a lot of things going on right now. And if you can plan in advance a little bit to be prepared for all this, it sure makes it a lot easier. Ava and Unisa, do you have any questions about insurance or wills or anything that I've talked about that maybe are kind of unknown that you never knew about?
For me, it would be I think you said annuity, life insurance.
Uh-huh.
I don't have life insurance right now, but I have been looking into getting some.
Mm-hmm.
But I think you said the annuity one is more like an investment.
Yeah, what it is, what it is, Ava, that's a great question. As I said, there's two types of insurance. One is called term insurance. In other words, you pay $20 a month and all that money goes to the insurance policy. And if you don't die, or you will die, but if you'll never have access to that money. In other words, you only get it when you're dead. Okay. That's a term policy. And the term policy goes up in stages. When you're 20 to 30, it's dirt cheap. When you're 30 to 40, it's a little bit more expensive. When you're 40 to 50, it's a little bit more expensive, and so on. Because why? The risk of you dying is increasing as you get older.
Mhm.
All right. But it's term insurance. It's very cheap. It really is. You can get $100,000, I said, for like 20 bucks a month. Very cheap, but it's not an investment. You lose it. It's money. If you don't die, you don't lose it. And when you do die, you don't get it anyways. But with a whole life or annuity policy, if you put in 30, 40 bucks a month, that's invested, that earns return. Also, over time, once you get to a certain age, depending on the policy, you can get payments or money out of that fund as a return on that investment. It's like an investment. Or also, you can close that fund anytime. Let's say you have a whole life policy and it has a balance of $2,000. That doesn't mean you get $2,000 of insurance. That means you've invested $2,000. You probably got a $100,000 policy, but $2,000 of that you put into the fund. If you have needs of that 2,000, let's say you want to pay for college education, or let's say you want to buy a new car, you can get that $2,000 out and use it to pay for something. Now, when you take it out, you have to pay tax on that. You have to pay ordinary income on that $2,000 that you put in the policy that you're now taking out. But at the same time, it's a form of an investment, and you're getting insurance at the same time.
Do you
For
have any
me,
that you recommend?
no. Well, I was just going to say, for me, because I'm an investment person or a business person, I thought I always have had term insurance, because if I have that kind of money, I'm going to invest in something where I really know what I'm doing and getting some money out of. So I've always throughout my whole life had term insurance. My wife has term insurance. We just get enough insurance. But now, naturally, now at our ages, I'm 60, I'm paying almost double for my insurance policy now than I was when I was 30 or 40, because I'm older. But at the same time, I have retirement and I have other benefits, so I don't buy as much term insurance. Basically, I'm going to be very crude here, so I apologize in advance. I just have enough insurance to plant me, to take care of the funeral, to take care of those expenses when I die. I don't have any liabilities. I don't have any debts. So I don't have anything my family doesn't have to worry about that. And also I have retirement benefits. They will get, my wife and my kids get those when I die. So there's all I need is so they don't have to deal with the burden of dealing with a funeral home and ashes and that whole scene. So that's all my term. Now, when I was younger, I had a lot more term insurance because I was still in my career. I had young children. So I had higher demands and I had debt, I had mortgages. But now, as I've gotten older, I've scaled back my term insurance because I have a contract at a local funeral. And this is really morbid, I apologize. I have a contract at a local funeral home. Should I die, they take over. My wife doesn't have to do anything. They just say, hey, Rick's dead. Take his body and take care of it. And they'll have it, they'll do everything right. But my term policy just does enough to cover that. So I would recommend term. And then the money you save on a term policy, just invest it yourself into an IRA or a 401k or whatever. Don't give it to an insurance company, because you're at the mercy of how they do. And I don't particularly, I'm a big fan of insurance companies managing money. So my recommendation would be just get a term policy and you'll be fine. And as you get older, you can scale back that policy because you're more financially secure and your family has got older. So that's how I would answer that. But again, I'm sure get an insurance broker or somebody who does insurance. Just don't go to the internet and say, oh, insurance. Don't do that. Find somebody, Wells Fargo Bank has a group of insurance companies that they recommend for personal insurance. And if you do business with Wells Fargo, they're not going to give you some idiot. They'll give you somebody who's reputable and will take care of you. find places that they can network. And then if you don't have any of those, then you send Mr. Hassey an email, say, Mr. Hassey, can you recommend some insurance people? And I will recommend some insurance people that I know in the area. None that I do business with, just because no, but I do know them because they're trustworthy. So that's what I would do. I made a question seem like an hour and a half, so I apologize for that. Eunice, do you have any question? Eunice, do you have any questions?
I have a question regarding the will. So
Yeah.
I know that you said like if we're like 45 around that age, we
Yep.
should consider like making a will.
Yep.
Is it also appropriate for like someone like in our 20s or 30s to, you know, make a will at that time?
Well, two reasons if you're in your 20s and 30s, Eunice, to get a will. If you have children, yes. If you don't have children and you have a lot of money, if you have a lot of your assets, yes. But if you're in your 20s and 30s and it's just you, and maybe you're living at home and you're just making enough money to, you know, have a comfortable life and nothing fancy, you don't need a will yet. Okay. But if you have children, or if you have somebody that depends on you, like your parents, your grandparents, or if you have beginning to have accumulate some wealth. Now, what's my definition of wealth? If you begin to have over $50,000 in the bank, or $50,000 worth of assets like cars or that you own, $50,000 is a starting point. Under that, don't worry about it. But then by that time, Eunice, then you should start thinking about protecting those assets and your family members if it gets to that point. Children, always. The minute you have a child, get a will.
Okay.
Okay? Because that's
Okay.
necessary. Because you got to, even though the child might be a toddler, you know, if you're a single parent, your will should state who's going to take control of your child. If you're a single parent and there's the other parent is not involved in your life whatsoever, you need to designate that. That's kind of important. So you don't want your children to end up going to foster homes. And I'm just saying this not to be crude, but that does happen. I mean, there was a tragic thing that happened a couple weeks ago in that shooting in Texas, or wherever that shooting was. Not Texas. Where was it? I can't remember. Where? Oh no, it was in San Francisco or whatever. Two parents and a child were shot. The two parents died, mom and dad, and now there were three children left with no parents, no grandparents. The grandparents had been dead, and those three children had to go to foster care. Talk about how lives can change. Foster care is, you know, that's tough. So you need to get that organized. Not saying what are the odds of me, of both myself and my partner or my spouse getting killed. It can happen in today's society. It can happen in any society. You just have to be prepared for that. Did I answer your question, Eunice?
Yeah, you definitely answered my question. Yeah,
Okay.
something to think about for sure. Thank you.
Yeah, and don't go right out tomorrow and say, oh, I better hire an attorney or I better get this going. Take your time, shop around. There's some great websites. What you should look at is what is called a living will. A living will. That's the cheapest form of will that you can get as a person. And what it means by living is that while you're living, you have designated all the resources, all the things that should happen if you die. And the good thing about that is, by it being a living will, that they can't take it to probate. Legally, they can't put it into probate. You have got everything figured out, all is well. And living will is the cheapest will you can get processed. It costs maybe $100 to do yourself. Not bad. Okay. Next week, when we come back next Thursday, if you have any last minute questions on your paper, we'll talk about that. If we have any last minute questions about this class, we'll talk about that. And we're going to talk about the thing that drives our lives the most: taxes. 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 We're going to talk about that next week, because if there's one thing in your life, not your parents, not your job, not your children, not your spouse or partner or husband or wife, the one thing that drives financially your life is taxes. Paying them, avoiding them legally, and managing your financial planning around taxes. And I'm not only just talking about payroll taxes, I'm talking about property taxes. I'm talking about sales taxes. I'm talking about estate or death taxes. Ugh, it makes your head spin. So we'll be talking about that next week, and that could be another layer onto things to think about in regard to your financial planning, is how do you plan your taxes? And I assure you, the more money you make, the more hassle taxes are. It really is. And to be aware of that and to plan for that makes your life so much easier. And that'll be our topic next week. Okay, folks, that's it. Unisa, I will send you that information tomorrow. And I think we're okay. And if you want to send me your draft in the next week, go right ahead. I'd be happy to look it over, point you in the right direction to get an A. See, that's one of the good things. You can avoid making mistakes by having the professor look at it before he grades it. So that's something to look at. And I'll see you guys all next Thursday at 7 o'clock. And I'll post this video tomorrow when I get it all fixed out. Okay? Thanks, everybody. Appreciate you being here, and stay healthy. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Professor.
Bye-bye.